Hi everyone, and welcome back to another episode of From the Sidelines. I'm your host, Sydney Jones, and I'm really excited to bring you guys another episode. I just want to first off start by saying thank you to all of you that supported the podcast launch last week. Again, I'm just really excited to kind of dive into this journey with you guys, and hopefully you guys learn a little bit along the way and can kind of create this fun community here for athletes to kind of turn to when they need it. So with that being said, again, thank you. And as always, go for it to share this podcast with your friends. If you're a parent, share it with other parent friends. I really hope to build a really strong community here of athletes who are really dedicated to their careers and to themselves and to growing and to learning more. So yeah, go ahead and do that, and we'll get this episode started. So for this is technically episode number 2, but obviously it's the first real content episode, I guess you could say. Obviously the first one was just more of an intro about me and kind of my journey in athletics and stuff like that, but this is technically your first content natured episode, I guess we could say. And I felt that there was no better way to start than to kind of really dive deep into why you're here, right? So in sports we have something what we call our why, and we're going to get into that later in our episode about what your why is, how you come up with it, and all the things like that. But I just kind of want to get you guys in that headspace. This is going to be definitely a more deeper mental type of episode. So, and kind of figuring out who you are and why you are who you are, kind of thing. So I just kind of first wanted to dive into a little bit of what the why is for this podcast. I'm a big proponent of showing and doing as I teach and or coach. So I'm not a do as I say kind of person. It's a do as I do almost analogy. If I can't do it, how can I expect anybody else to be able to do it? So that's kind of why I wanted to give a little bit of background into the why of this podcast. So really when I was sat down and really thought about what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it, really the main things that just kept coming back to me were helping athletes grow, number 1, and number 2, creating a safe space for athletes to really be vulnerable, but also to learn a little bit about themselves. Because I think as athletes, a lot of times we see ourselves as athlete first and person second, and it really should be the flip of that. Sports are what you do, they're not who you are. And I think if you're here, you've probably heard that saying so many times, and it really is so true. Because if we don't know who we are to our core or why we're doing what we're doing, then those hurdles and those struggles and those obstacles are really going to become big burdens. Sorry, I'll get it out, guys. So really the why for this podcast is to create a space for athletes to be themselves and also learn about important topics that are going to affect your career in some shape or another along the way, right? So again, like I said in the first episode, the things we talk about here may not look the same for you as they look for somebody else, and that's totally okay. That's totally natural, right? Your career is going to look nothing like the person next to you, no matter if you come from the same background, the same parenting style, same race, same gender. No matter what, your journey is still going to look different than theirs. And I think that's the beauty of sports, and I think that's why we can all continue to learn from each other and to grow together as a community. Because, again, when you're on a team, especially a team sport, right? When you're more of an individual, obviously you don't encounter this as much. But when you have to work within a team and you're on a team with girls or guys that are completely opposite of what you have come from, you really have to learn to adapt, and you really have to learn to communicate with one another, and quite honestly to work together. Because obviously a team cannot function if only one person is working towards a goal, right? So getting back to the why, and kind of, again, for this podcast, from the sidelines, is really just to create that space and to allow you guys to take the lessons and apply them however you see fit in your career, right? And quite honestly, it's also a place for me to be able to give back, right? Sports in general, and especially softball in my case, gave me so much, right? My life would look totally different if it weren't for my parents putting me into softball when I was 6 years old, right? I wouldn't know the people that I know. I wouldn't have gone the places I've gone. And not to say, my life wouldn't have been great otherwise, obviously hindsight 2020, we don't know that, right? But I do know that sports, and softball in particular, gave me so much, and really gave me a life I can look back on and cherish, and really appreciate. And quite honestly, the life lessons it taught me outside of sports is really what I've taken away from it, because I think when you're in it, when you're in your career, you kind of are in this little bubble. Like, you really are in a position that a lot of things don't necessarily affect you like they will when you're outside of sports, if that makes sense. When you're kind of in it, it's almost as if nothing else really matters, especially when you're young, right? And you really don't have many responsibilities. You're still living with your parents, all those things. And it's not really until afterwards that you realize it was like, okay, well, I kind of put off a lot of life things, and thinking about certain things that maybe what you want to do after your career and things like that you don't necessarily think about when you're in the midst of it, because your sport is all you know, right? And I've been there. I've been that girl that was kind of like, oh, I don't have to think about life outside of sports, because at the time it feels like that day's never gonna come, right? And quite honestly, it comes for all of us, no matter if you play professionally, if you play professionally for 20 years, if you stop playing in high school, right? That day eventually comes for all of us, and we kind of have to know what we're gonna do with it afterwards. So for me, this podcast is really a place to give back to that, and to give to this generation of athletes maybe some things that I necessarily missed, and maybe things that I didn't necessarily prepare for. But also to give you guys a space to be encouraged and inspired, and to really dive as deep as you possibly can into your athletic career. So with that being said, obviously you can find this podcast anywhere where you guys get your podcasts, and obviously on YouTube as well, and then also on my Instagram page, From the Sidelines. And I really hope you guys take a second to go ahead and just interact with the content that I put out. Obviously it really helps me out. It's going to really help our community as we grow out. And so getting into kind of the main content for today, obviously we're going to kind of start with, what is your why, right? I feel like, especially when you're young, people, I feel like, will come and be like, Sid, how do I figure out my why? Like, what if I come from a background where, not necessarily things were handed to you, but things were definitely more accessible to you, right? Or you have a really great upbringing, and you have really supportive parents, or you just come from a great scenario. So it's harder for you to dig deeper into things that maybe bring out your why, right? Well, you don't have to come from, a tough situation to find your why. And if your tough situation is your why, that's great too, right? So as an athlete, your why is the specific reasoning, and I say specific because it really needs to be that specific, like to the point, that it means something personal to you, right? Like if you're just like, oh, I play because my older brother plays a sport, and so I wanted to play too. That's not good enough, right? Like you're gonna get to a point in your career where it's like older brother is probably exceeding beyond all expectations, and you might be in his shadows, and you might not love it in that way anymore, right? But you're just playing because older brother played. Like that is gonna be a really hard and tough time for you to get through mentally. And I just think obviously, if you play a sport, it's got to be for you, and it's got to be for reasonings that only you want it, right? It can't be like, again, something like, oh, my parents want me to, or oh, my older sibling did this, right? Your why's got to be personal to you. It has to be the very thing that gives you purpose, motivation, determination, discipline, and direction, right? So when the going gets tough, what do you turn to? Because no matter what sport you play, no matter what age you're at, right, something's gonna get in the way, whether it's an injury, whether it's confrontation with a teammate, whether it's you just don't see eye to eye with a coach, whether it's external factors totally outside of sports, right? Your home life, something with school, right? Things are always going to get in the way. So your why is something that should really center you and bring you back to that core purpose of why you started in the first place, or why you love it, right? Or why you want to get to wherever you want to get to. Because again, like I said, life has its way of kind of throwing things at you, and unfortunately things that you can't control a lot of the times. So really your why needs to be something personal, and you need to be able, when you think about it, be like, okay, yes, this is why. Like if you're in that mindset where you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to continue playing, and then you think of your why and you get up and go and take those 10 extra reps, right? Or go to the weight room, or have a better mindset going to practice, something like that. That's what your why needs to bring you back to. So you say, Sid, like, oh, you got to have this super deep, personal, powerful why, but like, how do I come up with that, right? So there's a bunch of different ways, but number one is, again, it needs to be powerful, right? It needs to be powerful and deep. Again, this is something that you're going to turn to when all obstacles are against you, right? Whether it's performance-wise, you could be in a slump, the biggest slump of your life. Whether you play basketball, you can't make a shot. Whether you play baseball or softball, you can't seem to hit water if you fell out of a boat, right? Or you're playing football and you're the quarterback and you can't hit a target to save your life, right? All of those performance slumps happen no matter what sport you play. And those are probably the most mentally taxing times, especially when you play at a high level and you're like, dang, why can I not just get this right? I've done it my whole life, right? You've got to find that sense of peace, and you've got to find that powerful message to yourself of why you're doing this. Why should I continue to try and get through this, right? So make it intrinsic, right? So we talked about at the beginning, it's got to be personal. So you've got to make it something about you. I want to do this, be this, whatever your thought is, right? I want this because this, right? And make it personal to you. I want to find joy. I want to be challenged. I want to grow. Something very personal about why you want to continue on your journey when you hit that point of, why am I doing this? Again, make it personal. Use your personal experiences, right? Use your upbringing. Use any external factors that could really allow you to apply it to your sports career, right? Maybe you come from a situation with, parents who may not be supportive, or a situation where you struggled financially growing up, right? Or a situation where maybe you didn't fit in school, right? Something like that. Use those situations that are super deep and personal to you to then get through something on the sports field, right? Because again, as much as we like to think like sports are our life and sports are, all right? At the end of the day, it's just a game. It's just something that you do, quite honestly, for fun, right? At the end of the day, doesn't matter if you hit 4 home runs in one game, if you hit the game-winning shot, if you throw the game-winning pass, none of it matters. The day that jersey comes off and you now have to live in real life, nobody cares, right? So at the end of the day, those personal life instances that you go through, whatever it may be, whether it's in your childhood or whether you come across something in your adulthood and you're still playing, right? All these life challenges are going to then allow you to apply your why, your inner why, even more so to is quote unquote a game, right? And then finally, make it big. Don't just be like, I want to play because I want to win championships, right? Something like that is so vague. And also, you have to keep in mind something like that is not every athlete gets to accomplish, right? And again, not that you won't. If that is your why, you want to win championships, okay, but understand that that is performance-based. That is not inner peace, inner personality based, right? So when that championship doesn't come, when you fall short or your team falls short, then what? Right? That's why your why's got to go extend further. Something that pushes you outside of your comfort zone and to reach new heights, right? It's got to be something bigger than yourself, right? And I'm sure you've heard that saying all the time. You've got to be playing for something bigger than just you, right? But it really is true, because again, those championships are not going to come every day. And if you get to experience just one at some point in your career, you're really, really, really lucky. So make it something bigger than yourself, okay? And then finally, once you have it, right, you've come up with your why. You've come up with the reasoning of why you're doing what you're doing. It means something to you. It's powerful. It's bigger than yourself, right? Now that you have it, don't let anybody, and I mean anybody, deter you from your why, right? So you are going to have not just physical obstacles, not obstacles in the form of a slump or life challenges. You're going to have obstacles from human beings, okay? There is going to be people throughout your career that doubt you, that don't believe you can do it, that maybe put you down at times. It could be somebody within your team or your coach, right? You're going to experience people obstacles throughout your career that are going to try and sabotage that from you. And I say this in a very almost dramatic way, but I'm trying to get you to understand that like there are people out there like that who aren't going to believe in your why, right? But the greatest thing about it is that they don't have to. Only you have to. You have to believe in it. You have to trust in it, right? And you can't let anybody take that away from you, because the minute you let someone else take it away from you, it becomes theirs and not yours, right? And so then it's not your why anymore. So don't let someone, once you have it, that is yours and it's yours to keep, and it's something you will turn to when the people who are trying to take it from you come around, okay? So again, that and all encompassing is how to find your why, what is your why, and kind of just getting you to the point where you have it, right? So one caveat I want to throw in there, and this is kind of a little bit not backwards from what I was just saying, but just a note that I want to put in there is your why can and probably will change. And that is totally okay, and that's totally normal. And you asked me, well, it's supposed to be something that's deep, it's supposed to be something that's personal, right? Your brain, when you're the 8, 9, 10-year-old athlete, is not the same as when you're that 18, 19, 20-year-old athlete, right? Normal, natural, human evolvement, right? Our passions get deeper, we understand things more, we probably are more talented by that point, right? So your why can and probably will change. So I'm gonna kind of get into a little bit more of like example-based whys, kind of in different stages of a career, right? Again, no matter what sport you play, whether you're a boy or girl, it doesn't matter. Apply this however you see fit, right? So I'm going to start at obviously the very ground level, which is youth sports, right? These are your rec days, your early travel days, your probably up to 12U, kind of, if you're in a sport that goes based off that, right around that area, right? So probably right until you're hitting like the end of middle school, early high school, right? These early adolescent years, okay? Your why is probably going to be a little bit more innocent, if that makes sense. And if you're a parent out there of a younger athlete, or you are a younger athlete and you're listening, like, that is totally okay. Sports are supposed to be fun. Let me just put in that note really quick. Sports are supposed to be fun. And if it was as crazy as it will get later on, if it was that crazy at the beginning, nobody would ever make it, because you have to find a love for the game when you're at that age to continue to move on. Because, you know, there's always that saying that's like, play for the little girl, right? That little girl or that little boy fell in love with the sport because it was fun and they had fun doing it. So to have a little bit more of an innocent why at those ages is totally fine and totally acceptable, right? So again, your why might be at that age. You might be a little girl playing soccer and your why is that you love to run, right? Totally fine. Love it. Go for it. That you love to run and you love competing and you love that wide open space, right? Soccer is perfect sport for you. Or you might say, because it's fun, right? I have fun doing this. This is my why. I want to go out to basketball practice because it is the most fun part of my day, right? You look forward to going to basketball practice every day. That's a great why when you're that age, right? It's a great opportunity for you to do something that you love, right? Your why might be to make friends, right? Sports are a great opportunity for young kids to make friends. I still have some of the same friends today that I had on that first team that I played on when I was 6 years old, right? The two coaches that were the coaches of that team, I talked about this in my intro, are still in my life today, right? They are like second parents to me. Their daughters are like sisters to me. We are literally like family, okay? So sports are a great way to make friends. And a lot of times, you know, parents put their kids into sports to socialize, right? It's a great social atmosphere. It kind of teaches you to learn from someone other than parents, right? And so that could be your why, to make friends, and that's totally fine and totally justified. It could be for you to be active, right? Again, sports provide a great atmosphere for kids to exercise and to learn structure and just be outside and be active, right? We live in a world that's so dominated by social media and technology nowadays. You see how many kids out there struggle with being able to just entertain themselves, quite honestly. I remember being a kid and it's just so different now. And I was outside every day until the street lights came on, and that was my cue to go inside, right? So it's just not like that anymore. So maybe sports, or maybe, you know, your sport is a way for you to be active, and that's your why at that point in time. Totally fine, totally justified. As you get older, and you know, you'll see the progression of whether you start in 8-unders and then you get to 10 and 12s, or however you progress, you'll see that why and yourself start to change a little bit. You'll see it start to magnify and start to become a little bit more meaningful to you, right? It's not just because it's fun anymore. It's because it's fun, but it's also because I've now learned that I like to compete, or I've now learned that I really want to pursue this long term, right? So your why is going to start to shift to be something a little bit more complex. So think of late middle school, early high school into, you know, those high school days, high school era for you, right? So 8th grade to probably 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade. This is that age gap, okay? Your why might change into that you want to play in college, right? You're developing physically, you're developing mentally, you're developing emotionally, and you've decided that this is something you want to pursue in college, and you start that recruiting process and you start getting your name out there. All these things like that, right? That becomes your inner why. When you face a struggle, when you hit a slump, right? Your why then reverts back to, I want to go to college. This is my dream. I want to make it there. I've got to get through this, right? It's deeper, it's more personal, it's more complex. It also could become something of the level that you want to achieve, right? In high school, you have your all-state players, you have your all-county players, right? That could be something that you want for yourself. And that could become your why. I want to prove everyone who's doubted me wrong, right? I want to be that all-state player that nobody told me I could be, but I knew I could be, right? Again, it becomes a little bit more personal, a little bit more deep, a little bit more meaningful, right? Again, as you grow, as you mature, these things start to mean more to you. So again, sports have a great way of teaching us about who we are and about what matters to us. Because again, life is intertwined with sports. Not so much sports is intertwined with life, but life is intertwined with sports. There's so many life lessons that you're going to learn along the way that are going to propel you, again, once you take that jersey off for the last time. So allow your why to kind of intertwine itself with your, things that you want in your life and things that you want in sports. They can coexist, okay? So now you've gone through the recruiting, you've committed, you've had that big day, right? You got all this recognition and signing day comes along and you sign on that white piece of paper and you're officially a college athlete, right? Your why is going to then shift again because you are now going to face more obstacles than you have ever faced in your career up to this point. And you're going to have to figure out a way to dig even deeper, right? And I'll give you a personal example. So I, fortunately enough, came from a very supportive family. I had two parents that gave everything they possibly could for me and my sister to live out our dreams. And, even at times when we probably couldn't afford it, we didn't know it. My sister and I never knew it. They were at every single game, unless they had to split up. One of them went with me, one of them went with her. So we were never alone at a tournament, at a game. I can't tell you a single game that my parents, at least one of them, wasn't at, okay? I go to college 16 and a half hours away from South Florida, went to college in Illinois. It became a very regular occurrence to have nobody in the stands from my family, right? Whether they were watching here at home or not, it's definitely not the same. And I had to learn to handle it on my own, right? I had to learn to handle the obstacles that college sports and sports in general will throw at you on my own. So my why had to take on a whole new meaning. It had to go even deeper. Why am I doing this, right? They say only this small, teeny tiny percentage of athletes get to college, right? And then an even smaller percentage finish, right? Why do I want to be part of that minuscule percentage of people that finish college? Why? Why do I want this, right? Well, for me, it turned into something, again, it had to be bigger than myself. I wanted to prove myself right? I wanted to know that my dream was fulfilled, and I fulfilled it because I didn't give up, right? And there were times, trust me, when it was tough. It was, I was so far from home, I couldn't just get on a flight and come home. And there were times when I really struggled. Thank God I had two amazing roommates, and that became two of my very best friends. And all of us were kind of far from home, so we kind of had each other to lean on a little bit, and that was definitely a blessing for all three of us. But again, there were times that weren't easy, and your why at that point, whatever obstacle you face, right? You could be at a school 10 minutes down the road from where you're from, but you're still going to face something in college that you didn't face earlier in your career. It's just the nature of college sports and the level of play that is demanded at college sports, right? This is your coach's livelihood. This is their job, right? So they have to win ball games, and that's just the nature of what college sports are, and professional sports, even if you go on to play further, right? So the why has to take on a whole new meaning when you get there. So moving on a little bit to outside of sports, right? We said that sports and life can coexist and will coexist, right? You have your why. Whatever phase of your sport you're at, you have your why. Implement it into your daily life as well, right? So whether you have a specific mirror you get ready in front of every day, right? Or you have some certain routine in the morning that there's something that you visually look at every day. Put your why there. Put it on the mirror. Put it on something visual that you're going to look at every single day, right? Because that is your daily reminder that this is why you're doing this, right? Put it on a note in your phone nowadays with technology, right? Have a daily reminder. You can set daily reminders on your phones now. Daily reminder, and type your why there so it pops up on your screen in the morning, right? Allow it to be intertwined with your daily life so that it's something you don't easily forget. And then also have a conversation, right? Have a conversation with your family, your friends, excuse me, teammates, coaches. Have that deep talk about what your why is. Allow them to be supportive of it, right? So say you come home one night and you're in high school and you sit down with your parents and you've had this revelation that you want to go to school on the other side of the country and that's where your dream school is. Have a conversation with them, right? Get them on board with what your why is. Because to be quite honest, as athletes, we can take ourselves as far as we want, and then our support system, whoever that may be, is going to push us even further, right? Because sometimes the people that are closest to us believe in us more than we believe in ourselves, right? As athletes, there's plenty of times when you will mentally struggle and have to rely on the people who will believe in you no matter what, right? Whether you are hitting 300 or you're hitting 200, right? And you're mentally in a high or you're mentally in a low, right? Those people are going to be the ones to bring you back. So you've got to have those conversations. Whether it could be your youth football coach, right? Your youth football coach was one of your greatest mentors and is still involved in your life today and has always believed in you. Have a conversation with him or her, right? Let them know what your why is all about. Let them know how you plan to achieve whatever your why is helping you achieve, right? Get your teammates on board, your friends on board, get your little circle of community on board with what it is you want, and I promise you it'll help you go even further. So with all that being said, right, your why is something that's super, super complex, obviously, and personal to you. You are not going to come up with it overnight, okay? And I don't want you to, right? Your why is not something that should be taken lightly, and it's not something that you should discover on a whim, right? Pieces of it might come to you in a moment, right? You might have this just realization at one point, and that's a small piece of it, right? But to put it together and piece it together might take some time, and that's totally fine. What I want you to start with is figuring out what your dreams and goals are and figuring out what is important to you, right? You might care less about playing college sports, and that is totally fine, right? You might want to take what you've learned in high school sports and become a coach or become a teacher and give back to the youth, right? That could be your why, and that's fine. I love that for you, right? So figure out what is important to you and start there. Your why at that point will likely come very naturally, right? You should never have to force it. If something doesn't feel right about it, then something's not right about it, right? Because again, it has to be personal. It has to feel like it's a part of you. Why am I doing this, right? When everything is going against me, why do I keep going, right? Do not be afraid if your why looks different than somebody else's, right? You're on a 16 and under travel baseball team and your teammate's why is something and yours is something else. Don't be afraid, right? We live in a world of comparison, okay? Especially now with social media. And quite honestly, especially in sports, right? We compare ourselves to the greatest to do it. Oh, so-and-so does this, I have to do this, right? No. You are you and they are them, right? So allow your why to look different. That's what makes you you. That's what quite honestly, if you want to talk about the college space, that's what makes you recruitable, right? If everyone looked the same, nothing would stand out to any coaches at that point, right? Because nothing makes anybody special if everyone looks the same, right? So find what makes you special, what you provide, and let your why look different. It should look different. Also, again, make it accessible. Make it accessible in your daily routine. We have technology up the wazoo nowadays, right? So allow it to be a part of something you look at visually every day and you digest every single day. Because again, you are going to wake up some days and your body is going to be so exhausted, so fatigued, so sore that you're like, dang, I wish I could just lay here all day, right? But you can't, okay? So what is going to get you out of bed and get you to the weight room or get you to practice or get you to your game? What's it going to be, right? Allow it to kind of fill you up and get you past those, what's the term I'm looking for here? Those hurdles in the moment, right? Those momentary hurdles of mental, exhaustion or physical exhaustion, right? So with all that being said, I really hope you guys took something from this episode. Again, these episodes are not going to be super lengthy. This is about a half hour, and I feel like that's the perfect amount to get a message across, to allow you guys to work it into your daily schedule at whatever phase of sport you're at, right? And hopefully, again, to give you guys a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of direction. That's what I want for this. So with all that being said, if you don't have your why yet, that's totally fine, right? If this is something you feel like you want to do and you're just struggling to find that deeper message, right? Reach out. I'm happy to help anybody, who's struggling with that. But also, I want this to be a community space. So leave, things in the comments, right? I'm sure, like I said before, there's someone that's experiencing, I guarantee you, the same struggle that you're experiencing right now, or they've experienced it in the past, right? And they found a way to get through it. So again, let this place be a place of community, right? And let it be a space that allows you to kind of grow within yourself by helping someone else, right? Or letting them help you, right? We're always going to be bouncing ideas off each other, whatever phase of sport you're at. Your teammates are going to be going to come like your family and your coaches, right? You're always going to be bouncing ideas off each other. So you have to be able to listen, and you have to be able to provide, right? So someone at any point in time, someone's going to be giving you information to listen to, and at any point in time, you're going to be giving information to someone else to listen to, right? So you have to be able to do both. So allow us to be a space for that. And if you have your why, great. I really hope you allow it to kind of be your daily purpose and to fulfill you internally when maybe your results aren't fulfilling you performance-wise, or maybe something's going on in your life that you're just really struggling with. Allow your why to be what fulfills you in that moment, right? So again, whatever phase you're at, I really hope you took something from this episode. It was really great to kind of give you guys this content. And again, for me, it's just really fulfilling to sit here and talk about it with you guys, because again, I've been in those moments. I've been the one who's doubted myself. I've been the one who's compared myself. I've been the one on the verge of quitting, quite honestly. And there just had to be something internally that kept me going. Okay, so with all that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed, and go ahead and share this with someone. Again, this podcast is always going to be available to be shared, whether it's on Instagram, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And I know that there's people out there that can learn something from this episode and can take something away from it. So whether that's you, whether that's your friend, if you're a parent, whether that's your parent's kid, whoever it may be, share it, leave a review. That really helps me out. It really helps us to reach a wider audience with the algorithms. So go ahead and leave a review if you like this episode. If you're over on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe so if you don't miss future episodes. Whatever platform you're on, just go ahead and interact, and let this be a place for that, because that's what I ultimately really want for it. So yeah, I'm going to let you guys go here. So play hard, dream big, and your career is what you make it. Bye guys, see you in the next episode.